Are you tired of fighting battles no one sees? Do you ever feel like you're on the edge, emotionally worn, spiritually drained, and just barely holding on, while the world keeps spinning as if nothing is wrong? Have you cried silently, lying in bed with your eyes open, wondering if anyone truly understands the weight you're carrying? There's a kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, a fatigue of the soul, and maybe, just maybe, that's what you're feeling right now. And what if I told you that this video didn't reach you by chance, but by divine timing? What if I told you that right now, in the middle of your inner war, you're about to hear a message that carries more than words? It carries healing, clarity, and power to change everything. This is not just another video. It's a moment between you and something greater. A whisper from eternity echoing through your confusion, reaching into your heart and asking you to stop running for just a moment and listen. Because today we're going to talk about what it truly means to be tired of fighting, not physically, but spiritually, emotionally, deep within. You've probably been told to stay strong, to keep the faith, to not give up. But what happens when your strength feels like it's gone? What do you do when even your prayers feel weak and silence is the only reply you get? Let's be real. Faith doesn't always look like raised hands and answered prayers. Sometimes it looks like holding on by a thread, whispering, "God, are you still with me?" And that question, as fragile as it may seem, is holy. Because only someone who still hopes, still asks. There's something sacred in your struggle. And it's time someone told you that your battle isn't a sign of failure. It's proof you haven't quit. It's proof that even weary, your soul still longs for the light. I know you've been carrying more than your fair share. Maybe it's grief, maybe it's fear, maybe it's the endless pressure to be okay. But right now, in this moment, I want you to hear this. You are seen, you are not forgotten, and this battle, it has purpose. Not because pain is noble, but because there is a victory being forged in your perseverance. Let's talk about what that really means. Before we dive deeper, I want you to pause with me and do something small but powerful. If this is resonating with you, even just a little, don't scroll away. Instead, act in faith right now. Comment the words, "I am hearing His voice." Say it not for me, but for yourself. Because when you declare it, even silently, you begin to awaken something within. You acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, this is God speaking through the noise. And when you comment, you don't just engage, you join a movement of people across the world who are stepping out of their silent battles and into something holy. You never know who else might be reading the comments, looking for a sign, looking for hope, feeling alone. Your simple words could be the miracle someone else needs. We are not islands. We are a family of souls navigating the mystery of life together. So like this video, subscribe to this channel and become part of something sacred. Not a number, not a follower, but a soul choosing to stay awake, choosing to fight for peace, choosing to hear His voice again. Because here's the truth most people won't say. Even when you're tired of fighting, you're still in the story. And some of the greatest breakthroughs happen not when you're the strongest, but when you're at the end of yourself. That's where God begins. That's where grace descends. That's where clarity is born. You were never meant to carry it all alone. And today, we're going to walk step by step through what it really means to let go of the weight, to understand what God does when we feel like giving up, and to discover why your exhaustion might be the beginning of a deeper transformation. Don't rush this. Let this be your sacred pause. This might just be the moment your soul has been waiting for. Keep listening. We're about to go deeper into what it means to be human, to struggle, to surrender, and to rise again. If you've stayed with me so far, write in the comments, "I know He hears me," because something tells me He's already answering. Would you like me to continue with the next part? There's a lie the world has been feeding you, subtle, persistent, and heavy. that your worth is tied to your productivity. That if you're not constantly doing, achieving, fixing, or proving something, you're falling behind. And when you finally stop to breathe, it creeps in again. Guilt. The thought that rest is laziness. That silence is failure. That slowing down is weakness. But let me ask you something. What if the opposite were true? What if rest is resistance? What if stillness is strength? What if, in the kingdom of God, the most powerful move you can make is to surrender? In Isaiah 30:15, there's a profound line: "In repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength, but you would have none of it." Read that again. Rest is not a reward, it's a weapon. And yet, we often run from it. Why? Because stillness forces us to confront what we've been avoiding. In the silence, our fears echo louder, our insecurities rise to the surface. The pain we buried under distractions begins to speak. But don't let that scare you, let it free you. God doesn't call you into silence to shame you. He calls you there to heal you. In 1 Kings 19, after Elijah collapsed under the weight of his own exhaustion, God didn't shout from a storm. He didn't demand strength or solutions. Instead, he spoke in a whisper, a still, small voice. And to hear a whisper, you have to be close. That's the kind of intimacy God wants with you. He doesn't shout from afar. He draws near. He waits until the noise dies down, and then, gently, he speaks. Not to criticize, but to comfort. Not to condemn, but to call you back to yourself, back to him. There's something sacred about admitting you're tired. It's not a confession of failure, it's the beginning of freedom. Psalm 23 reminds us, "He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul." Notice the words. He makes me lie down. Sometimes God allows everything to slow down, not to punish you, but to realign you. You weren't created to run non-stop. Even the Creator himself rested. And if God in his infinite power chose to rest, why do we feel like we must outrun our own exhaustion? Maybe today is the day you stop apologizing for needing rest. Maybe it's the day you start believing that rest is holy. You've been strong long enough, you've fought hard enough, now it's time to let your soul breathe. Can you trust that God's still working even when you're not? Because the truth is, He is. He's in the pause. He's in the silence. He's in the spaces between all your striving. And the invitation remains, be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. That knowing doesn't come in the hustle, it comes in the hush. And here's what I want you to reflect on now. What would it look like if you truly believed that your worth isn't something you earn, but something you already carry because you were made in His image? What if you finally let go of the need to impress and simply let yourself be held? If this is touching a part of you that has long been ignored, don't hold it in. Share it. Write in the comments, "I'm letting go of the fight." Let those words become a declaration of trust, a turning point, a breath of relief. Subscribe and stay close, because we're not done. The path you're on right now is unfolding into something sacred. And this next revelation, it may be the one that finally breaks the cycle. There is a weight many of us carry in silence, the invisible pressure to be the strong one, to hold everything together, to be the answer for everyone else's questions, while secretly asking our own. And though we walk through life with a smile, somewhere deep inside, we're exhausted, not just physically, soul tired. It's the kind of exhaustion that sleep can't fix, the kind that sits in your chest when your prayers feel unanswered, the kind that grows louder when you're alone and wonder if anyone truly sees what you're carrying. But hear this, God sees it all, and not only does He see it, He feels it with you. In Hebrews 4:15 it says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. Jesus knows what it means to feel overwhelmed. He knows what it's like to cry alone in a quiet place. He knows the sting of rejection, the weight of responsibility, the ache of waiting, and the pain of being misunderstood. And still he chose to walk with us, not as a distant God looking down in judgment, but as a Savior who kneels beside you in the dirt. You are not weak for feeling tired. You're not faithless for needing rest. You are human, and you are loved in that humanness. Remember the story in Matthew 11 when Jesus looks at a crowd weighed down by religion, by rules, by expectations they could never meet. What did he say? "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Not more to do, not more to prove, just rest. His arms are open, not with demands, but with relief. But so often we keep trying to earn what he already gave. We wear masks of strength because we think vulnerability is dangerous. But vulnerability is not the enemy. It's the doorway to healing. Let's be honest. How many times have you said, "I'm fine," when you weren't? How often have you answered, "I'm just tired," knowing it was more than that? Because tired is sometimes the easiest word we can reach for when we really mean, "I'm overwhelmed. I'm hurt. I'm unsure if I can keep going." And to that, God says, you don't have to keep pretending. And you're not called to carry everything alone. Ecclesiastes 4:10 says, "If either of them falls down, one can help the other up, but pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up." You were never designed to walk this path isolated. That's why this space exists. That's why this message found you today. Because whether you realize it or not, you are being pursued, gently, patiently, by a God who whispers, "You are not alone in this." This weariness in you, it matters. And there's a deeper purpose to it, not to break you, but to break open the parts of you that have long been hidden under armor, the parts that need light. Let me ask you something. What would happen if you stopped pretending to be okay and just were? What if today, for the first time in a long time, you didn't push the pain away, but welcomed it as a teacher? Because every emotion you feel is trying to show you something deeper. Even exhaustion, especially exhaustion, it's a signpost, not the end of the road, but a sacred turning point. So pause, breathe. You're doing better than you think. And if you've made it this far into this message, I need you to know there's something on the other side of your weariness that you can't see yet, but it's waiting. And you are being guided toward it even now. Comment below if you're ready to drop the mask and say it out loud. I am hearing his voice. Not just because he speaks, but because you're finally still enough to listen. Like this video, if something stirred in your spirit. Share it if you feel someone else might need this moment of honesty. And if your heart is open, subscribe. Not to a channel, but to a journey. One where we walk through the hard things together. There's healing in this process. And the next part may be the moment that everything begins to change. Somewhere deep inside, every soul asks the same silent question. How long must I fight like this? When the pressure never seems to let up, when your heart feels like a battlefield, and each day is a new war against discouragement, doubt, fear, and silence, it's easy to feel like you're losing ground. But let's pause right here and ask something that most people never dare to ask out loud. What if the battle isn't meant to be won by your strength at all? What if your exhaustion is not weakness, but a divine signal that it's time to surrender? Not in defeat, but in trust. Because here's a truth few talk about. There is sacred power in surrender. Psalm 46:10 whispers this truth with gentle authority. Be still and know that I am God. It doesn't say keep pushing. It doesn't say prove your worth. It doesn't say outperform your pain. It says be still. In the stillness, something supernatural happens. You stop moving just long enough to remember that this fight was never yours to win alone. that the hands you've used to hold the world together were never designed to carry the weight of it. In Exodus 14:14, as the Israelites stood at the edge of the Red Sea, with the Egyptian army pressing in behind them, paralyzed by fear, God gave them a word that still echoes through history. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Let that settle in your heart. The Lord will fight for you. The exhaustion you feel may be a signal that your season of striving is coming to an end, that God is stepping in where your strength is stepping out. Now you may ask, but how do I let go? How do I stop fighting? It starts with trust, not a blind, emotionless trust, but a messy, honest trust, the kind that says, God, I don't have it together. I don't know how this ends, but I choose to place what little strength I have in your hands. It's a trust that happens in the middle of the storm, not when things are calm, but because they're not. Let's look at Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Do you remember that moment? He was on the edge of his greatest suffering, the weight of the world's sin crushing his soul, and he cried out in agony, Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. But he didn't stop there. He added, Yet not as I will, but as you will. Even Jesus, the Son of God, surrendered, and in his surrender, the greatest victory in history was born. So let me ask you this. What might be waiting on the other side of your surrender? What miracle is being delayed because you're still trying to win with human hands what can only be conquered through heavenly power? Let that question stay with you for a moment, because when you finally stop fighting in your own strength, you make room for heaven to step in. There's a quiet revolution happening in your soul right now. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's real. You're beginning to release the pressure. You're allowing yourself to say, I can't do this on my own anymore. And instead of shame, you're being met with grace. Let these words be your lifeline. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. That's 2 Corinthians 12:9. And it's more than a verse. It's a promise. This means your lowest moment could be God's launching point. Your breakdown might be the birthplace of breakthrough. And maybe, just maybe, this tiredness you feel isn't the end. Maybe it's the beginning of you being carried by grace, carried by love, carried by a God who's never lost a battle. If this truth is sinking in, I invite you to say it aloud in the comments. Speak to me, Lord. Declare it boldly, as a sign that your fight is no longer about proving, but trusting. Like this message, if it found you in a quiet moment, share it with someone who's carrying more than they can handle. And don't forget to subscribe, not for numbers, but to keep your heart connected to messages that breathe peace where there's been pressure. Stay with me. This journey is just beginning to unfold, and what comes next will reveal what your heart has been searching for all along. Have you ever noticed how silence can feel louder than any noise? There's a particular kind of quiet that comes when you've prayed, cried, hoped, and still nothing changes. It's in those silent stretches when heaven feels closed and your strength is flickering like a dying candle that doubt begins to whisper. Maybe God isn't listening. Maybe I'm truly alone. But let me tell you something sacred. Heaven's silence is not God's absence. In fact, some of the deepest spiritual work happens in the quiet. Remember Lazarus? His sisters, Mary and Martha, had sent word to Jesus, "The one you love is sick." And yet Jesus stayed where he was for 2 more days. To them, it must have felt like abandonment, like delay, like denial. But when Jesus finally arrived, he revealed something far greater. This sickness will not end in death, but it is for the glory of God. What looked like silence was actually setup. What felt like absence was preparation for resurrection. So I ask you, what if your season of silence is preparing the stage for something you can't even imagine yet? What if the delay isn't denial, but divine orchestration? Isaiah 64:4 says, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those who wait for him. That word wait, it's not passive. In Hebrew, it's rooted in tension, like a rope being stretched. Waiting is active. It's an act of trust, of endurance, of silent warfare. Let me bring this even closer to your heart. Imagine a seed buried beneath the soil, in the dark, unseen, undisturbed. It doesn't look like anything is happening, but under the surface, transformation is taking place. The hard shell is breaking, roots are beginning to stretch, and soon something will rise, but only if it stays in the soil long enough. That's you right now, in this moment where everything feels still, and you wonder if your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling. You are in the soil, and the silence isn't punishment, it's preparation. God is growing something in you that can't be rushed. Because when it blooms, it will carry weight, it will carry testimony, it will carry light. This is why Psalm 41:2 becomes so personal. I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the slimy pit and set my feet on a rock. God hears even the cries you don't speak, the ones buried in sighs, in silence, in sleepless nights. So let me ask you, can you hold on to faith even when God seems silent? Can you trust that the delay is not rejection, but divine protection? If this resonates with your spirit, if you've been walking through silence and you're still holding on, write in the comments, I know He hears me. Let it be your declaration of war against doubt, your whispered defiance against despair. And if this message is watering something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, share it. You never know who's crying in secret, thinking they're the only one walking through the silence. Subscribe and stay connected, not just for the next message, but for the community of hearts who, like you, are learning to trust in the unseen. Stay rooted. The seed is breaking open and resurrection is coming. Have you ever wondered why your heart feels so heavy even though you're still standing? It's not just the battles on the outside. It's the weight you carry within. Disappointments, unanswered questions, the fatigue of fighting battles no one else sees. You've pressed on, hoping for a breakthrough. But sometimes it feels like the world is just spinning while you're stuck in the same place. But what if I told you that even in your stillness, God is moving? There's a story tucked in 2 Chronicles 20 where King Jehoshaphat faced an overwhelming army. The odds were impossible, the fear was real, and the people of Judah didn't know what to do. And in that moment of desperation, the Lord spoke something that shifts every battle we face. Do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army, for the battle is not yours, but God's. Imagine the relief, realizing that the fight you've been exhausting yourself over was never yours to carry alone. The tears, the sleepless nights, the inner turmoil, you were never meant to bear it all by yourself. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is surrendering the fight you've been trying to win with your own strength. Have you been carrying battles that belong to God? The weight of proving yourself, the need to control outcomes, the fear that if you let go, everything will fall apart. What if letting go is exactly what God needs you to do so He can move? Matthew 11:28-29 echoes His heart for you today. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Rest doesn't mean giving up. It means giving over. Giving over the weight of what you can't change to the one who can. Giving over your weariness for His strength. Giving over your anxiety for His peace. It's a divine exchange. So, as you listen to these words, ask yourself, what battle have you been fighting alone that you need to release into God's hands? Because even when you can't see Him moving, He is already ahead of you, clearing the path you can't yet see. Take a deep breath. Let it go. Whisper these words in the comments if this is speaking to your heart. I'm letting go, and I trust you, Lord. Declare it not just for yourself, but for every weary soul who needs to know that surrender is not defeat. It's the beginning of victory. Like this video, if you're ready to lay it down, share it with someone who's been carrying too much for too long. And remember, when your strength is failing, that's where his power begins. He's fighting. For you, always. You've probably heard the phrase, God helps those who help themselves. But what if that's not the whole truth? What if sometimes God helps those who can't help themselves anymore? There are moments in life when the only thing you can do is fall to your knees, not in weakness, but in recognition that there are battles only heaven can win, that there's a limit to human strength, and when you reach that line, what waits beyond is not failure, but grace. Let's talk about Elijah, a prophet, a man of God, a warrior in spirit. But even Elijah came to the end of himself. After a powerful victory on Mount Carmel, he found himself fleeing for his life, drowning in fear, fatigue, and emotional exhaustion. In 1 Kings 19, he lies under a tree and cries out, "I have had enough, Lord, take my life." Have you ever been there, that low, that honest? But what did God do? He didn't scold Elijah. He didn't rebuke him for his weakness. No, he sent an angel to feed him, to let him rest, and then told him that the journey ahead was too much for him without nourishment. God met Elijah in his collapse, not with a command to keep pushing, but with kindness and care. That's who your God is. He doesn't abandon the weary. He doesn't shame the broken. He sends provision into your wilderness, even when you've given up. There's something sacred about collapsing into his arms, because that collapse might be the most honest prayer you've ever prayed. And it's in that place of raw surrender that you discover something powerful. You're not alone. You were never alone. Your breaking point is not your ending point. It's often the moment God steps in and says, "Now let me carry you." So many people live pretending to be strong, pretending not to cry, pretending to hold it all together. But what if true strength is admitting, "God, I can't do this without you"? Jesus said in John 15:5, "Apart from me, you can do nothing." It's not a condemnation. It's an invitation to let him be the vine, the source, the strength you've been trying to manufacture, to stop pretending and start depending. He already knows your limits. He's not waiting for you to impress him. He's waiting for you to trust him. And when you do, when you stop performing and start surrendering, something shifts. You begin to walk, not in your own strength, but in his spirit. Your steps become lighter, your heart more open, your eyes more focused, not on the battle, but on the one who wins them. So ask yourself today, have you been trying to hold it all together in silence? Have you confused endurance with isolation? Let him in. Whisper in the comments, "I need you, Lord. I can't do this alone." Say it with your heart wide open. No filters, no masks, just you and him. Like this video, if something inside you is starting to soften, if it feels like a burden is being lifted, and if this message found you in the middle of your breaking point, don't run. Let it be your turning point. Because the God who met Elijah under the tree is the same God who's reaching for you now, with rest, with grace, with the quiet strength to carry on. He's not asking for your performance. He's waiting for your surrender. The power of surrender is often misunderstood in our world today. We're taught to stand strong, to fight, to strive with all our might. We live in a world that praises self-sufficiency and independence. But what if strength isn't found in what you do, but in who you let carry you? Let me tell you about a man named Paul. Paul, once a fierce persecutor of Christians, found himself in the most humbling position a person could be in. He was imprisoned for his faith, often beaten, shipwrecked, and mocked. He faced hardships most of us will never fully understand. And yet, in the midst of it all, Paul wrote one of his most famous letters, the letter to the Philippians. In Philippians 4:12-13, Paul says, "I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret, of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. This is a paradox. The same man who went through unthinkable suffering declares that he can do all things. But how? Not by his own willpower or strength, but by the strength of God working in him. It's easy to say, I can do all things when things are going well. But when the storms come, when the pain feels unbearable, it's harder to hold onto that promise. But that's exactly what Paul did. He didn't rely on his own capacity to endure. He relied on the power of Christ to strengthen him. Paul's secret to surviving and thriving in the face of unimaginable difficulty was his total dependence on Christ. And this is where the mystery lies. The strength to endure hardship isn't found in our effort. It's found in God's power. This is why surrender is so powerful. When you surrender your need for control, your need for answers, your need for strength, that's when God steps in. That's when he shows up in ways you could never have imagined. The strength we receive through Christ is not the strength to avoid suffering. No, it's the strength to endure it, to grow through it, and ultimately to be transformed by it. God doesn't promise to remove our battles, but he does promise that he'll fight alongside us. And that's the kind of God we serve, one who doesn't abandon us in our darkest moments, but walks with us through them. His strength is perfected in our weakness, and it's in those moments when we're at our lowest that his power is made most visible. I know you might be facing something today that feels bigger than you, a problem you've tried to solve on your own for too long. Maybe you're at the end of your rope and you don't know where to turn. But I want to encourage you right now. Lean into your weakness, embrace it, and in doing so you will find the strength you've been searching for, not from yourself, but from the one who is always there, ready to carry you when you can't carry yourself. Ask yourself now, what is it that I've been trying to control in my own strength? Maybe it's time to release it. Let God handle it. If this message is speaking to you, if you feel God tugging at your heart to stop fighting and start resting, comment below with, I am surrendering today. Let that declaration be your first step toward the peace you've been longing for. Like this video if you believe God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to not have it all together. Because when you surrender, you're not giving up. You're positioning yourself to receive what only God can give, a peace that surpasses all understanding. As we continue on this journey of surrender and strength, there's something crucial you need to understand about the nature of true rest in God. It's not about passivity or inactivity. It's not about simply waiting for life to change while you sit idly by. No, it's about trusting in the power of God to work through you, even when you feel exhausted. It's about resting in him while you keep moving forward with his strength, fueling every step you take. Let me tell you a powerful story that exemplifies this kind of trust. There's a story in the Bible about a man named Elijah. Elijah was a prophet who did extraordinary things. He called down fire from heaven, performed miracles, and stood boldly against the prophets of Baal. But even Elijah, the mighty prophet of God, faced moments of great despair. After his victory over the prophets of Baal, Elijah was threatened by Queen Jezebel, who wanted him dead. Fear overcame him, and he fled into the wilderness, exhausted and overwhelmed. He found himself alone, sitting under a tree, ready to give up. He cried out to God, saying, I have had enough, Lord. Take my life. In that moment, Elijah felt like he couldn't go on. He was physically drained and emotionally spent. But God didn't scold him for his despair. Instead, he provided for him. An angel appeared to Elijah, providing him with food and water. Elijah ate and drank, and then the angel told him, Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. 1 Kings 19:7. God didn't just tell Elijah to keep going on his own strength. He acknowledged Elijah's weariness and met him in that moment of need. God gave Elijah exactly what he needed to continue the journey: rest, nourishment, and strength for what was ahead. The story of Elijah shows us that even in our lowest moments, God does not abandon us. He provides for us, not just in the physical sense, but also in the spiritual. When we're tired, when we feel like we can't go on, God steps in. He gives us what we need to keep moving forward, one step at a time. You might feel like Elijah today, exhausted, defeated, and ready to give up. You might be facing battles that have drained you of everything you had. But I want to remind you that God is with you. His provision is available to you, even in the midst of your struggles. God doesn't expect you to go through life on your own strength. He doesn't want you to keep pushing forward without His help. When you surrender, when you acknowledge your weariness, you open the door for God's strength to flow through you. This isn't just a passive rest. It's an active trust. It's saying, God, I'm too weak to keep going on my own, but I trust that you will give me what I need to carry on. Take a moment right now and reflect. Where do I need to let go of my own strength and rely on God's provision? Maybe it's in your work. Maybe it's in your relationships, or maybe it's in your personal faith journey. Wherever it is, God is ready to meet you there. If you're ready to trust God's provision, to allow Him to give you the strength you need, comment below with, I am trusting God's provision today. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message of God's faithfulness and provision, share this video with them. Let them know that they don't have to do it all alone. God is ready and waiting to provide for them. Remember, this rest is not a retreat from life. It's a divine partnership with God to carry the weight of the world, with His strength, not yours. You don't have to fight alone. As we move further into this transformative journey, it's crucial to understand the power of surrender. Truly, surrendering everything to God. But what does it really mean to surrender? It's not just about giving up or relinquishing control. It's about trusting God with your deepest fears, your biggest struggles, and your greatest desires. In our culture, we're often told that strength comes from control, that we must always be in charge, always in control of our circumstances. We're taught to hold tightly to what we have, to fight for what we want, and to never let go. But in the kingdom of God, strength is found in surrender. True victory is found in letting go of the illusion of control and trusting God to handle everything. When Jesus spoke to His disciples, He said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. These words were not just meant for the weary physically, they were meant for the weary spiritually as well. Jesus wasn't just offering rest from physical toil. He was offering a rest from the weight of our burdens, our fears, and our struggles. He was offering us the peace that comes from surrendering our lives to Him. But surrender doesn't come easily, does it? In fact, it's one of the hardest things to do. We want to control everything. We want to know what's ahead. We want to have a plan. We want to feel secure in our own strength. But the truth is, surrendering to God requires a level of trust that many of us struggle with. We've all been through moments where it felt like we were fighting a losing battle. Maybe you've been praying for something for years, and it feels like God isn't listening. Maybe you've tried everything on your own, and yet you're still stuck. The temptation is to keep fighting, to keep pushing with our own strength. But what if I told you that the battle was never yours to fight alone? What if I told you that true rest comes from letting God fight for you? There's another story in the Bible that sheds light on this principle. The story of Jehoshaphat, a king who faced an impossible battle. In 2 Chronicles 20, we see that Jehoshaphat's kingdom was under threat from a vast army. His people were outnumbered, and it seemed like there was no hope. But instead of panicking or fighting on his own, Jehoshaphat did something radical. He sought God's guidance. He declared a fast, gathered the people and prayed, "We do not know what to do, but our eyes are upon you. 2 Chronicles 20:12. Jehoshaphat recognized that he couldn't fight this battle alone. He couldn't rely on his own strength or wisdom, so he surrendered the battle to God. And what happened? God sent a prophet to deliver a message of assurance. Do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army, for the battle is not yours, but God's. 2 Chronicles 20:15. In the end, God fought the battle for them, and they were victorious. Jehoshaphat and his people didn't have to fight. They simply had to trust that God would take care of it. This story is a powerful reminder for us today. When we face battles in our own lives, whether they're emotional, financial, relational, or spiritual, we often try to fight on our own. But the truth is, we are not meant to fight these battles by ourselves. We are called to surrender them to God, trusting that He will take care of it. Surrendering doesn't mean that we do nothing. It means that we trust God's timing, His plan, and His power. It means that we believe He is bigger than any obstacle we face, and we are willing to follow His lead. Where in your life do you need to surrender today? Is there an area where you've been trying to control things, but it's only causing more stress and frustration? Take a moment to reflect. If you're ready to surrender that battle to God, comment below with, "I am surrendering it to God." This is your act of faith, your declaration that you're not going to fight alone anymore. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message of surrender and trust in God, share this video with them. Let them know that they don't have to carry their burdens alone. God is waiting to fight on their behalf. True rest, true peace comes from surrendering to God's will and trusting Him to do what only He can do. When we give up the fight, we find that God is already working behind the scenes, preparing the way for victory. As we continue our spiritual journey, it's important to ask ourselves, what happens when we finally let go and surrender? What is the reward of trusting God with our battles, with our lives, with our everything? The answer is profound. It's peace, but not just any peace, a peace that transcends our understanding, that guards our hearts and minds, the kind of peace that only God can provide. In the book of Philippians, Paul writes, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." Philippians 4:6-7. This peace doesn't come from the absence of struggle or difficulty. It doesn't mean that our lives will be free from hardship. No, the peace Paul speaks of is the peace that comes even in the midst of the storm. It is a peace that doesn't make sense to the world because it is supernatural. It's a peace that can only come when we completely surrender our worries, our anxieties, our need for control, and trust in God's perfect plan. Have you ever experienced this peace? Perhaps it was in a moment of prayer or during a trial where you didn't know how you were going to make it, yet somehow you were at peace. You knew deep down that God was with you and that He was in control. That peace is a result of surrendering. When we choose to trust God, to release our fears, to stop fighting the fight on our own, something miraculous happens. His peace invades our hearts. It doesn't just calm our minds temporarily. It guards our hearts from the anxiety, the fear, the bitterness, and the hopelessness that this world can so easily drag us into. The journey of surrender is not just about letting go of the weight of our struggles. It's about receiving something far greater, God's peace and His presence. It's about recognizing that we no longer have to carry the burden of trying to figure everything out. We don't have to rely on our own wisdom or strength. God's wisdom is greater. His strength is perfect. And when we trust in Him, we can rest in the peace that He provides. I want you to think about this for a moment. Is there an area in your life where you've been struggling to control things? Maybe it's your career, your finances, your relationships, or your health. Have you been carrying that burden on your own, fighting a battle that you were never meant to fight alone? Today, God is calling you to surrender. He's inviting you to place those worries in His hands, to release the fear and anxiety that have been weighing you down. And in return, He will give you peace. Not the kind of peace the world gives, but the peace that only He can provide. If you're ready to receive that peace today, comment below with, "I receive His peace." This is your declaration of faith. It's your act of trust. It's saying, "I'm done fighting this battle on my own. I trust God to take care of it, and I receive His peace into my heart." You may be wondering, how do I know if God will actually come through for me? How do I know if He'll really give me the peace I need? The answer lies in His faithfulness. God has never failed His people. From the beginning of time, He has been faithful to His promises. He has always come through, and He will do the same for you. The peace that God offers is not a temporary fix. It's a lasting, eternal peace that will continue to guard your heart and mind even when the storms of life come. It's a peace that will carry you through the darkest of times, the most difficult battles, and the most trying moments of your life. It's a peace that will never leave you, and this peace is available to you right now. All you need to do is surrender. Let go of your need to control, your desire to fight on your own, and trust in the one who is able to bring peace in the midst of any storm. If you've experienced the peace of God in your life before, share your testimony in the comments below. Let others know how God has come through for you. Your story may be the encouragement someone else needs to surrender their battle to God and receive His peace. Remember, you don't have to fight this battle alone. God is with you, He is fighting for you, and He is offering you His peace. The peace that transcends all understanding, the peace that will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. Let that peace be the anchor that holds you steady in the midst of the storm. We've talked about the peace that comes from surrender, and now it's time to ask a critical question. What happens when we allow God to take control? What happens when we finally trust Him enough to let go of our own plans and expectations? When we surrender fully to God, something profound happens. He transforms our lives. He takes what is broken, what is uncertain, what is chaotic, and He brings order, healing, and restoration. God doesn't just give us a temporary fix. No, He brings transformation that touches every area of our lives, our hearts, our minds, our relationships, our futures. One of the most beautiful examples of this is the story of Abraham. In Genesis 22, God asks Abraham to do something that seems utterly impossible, to sacrifice his son, Isaac. Abraham had waited years for this child, and now God is asking him to give up what he held most dear. It seems like an impossible request, but Abraham obeys. He trusted God completely, even when he didn't understand why or how it would all work out. And then, just as Abraham is about to sacrifice Isaac, God intervenes. He provides a ram as a substitute sacrifice, and Abraham's faith is rewarded. God not only spared Isaac's life, but also reaffirmed His promise to Abraham that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. This story is powerful because it shows us the reward of surrender and trust in God. Abraham didn't understand why God was asking him to do this, but he trusted God's plan. He surrendered everything he held dear, and in return, God provided abundantly more than Abraham could have imagined. Now think about your own life. What is it that God is asking you to surrender? Maybe it's a relationship that you're holding onto too tightly. Maybe it's your career, your finances, or your plans for the future. God isn't asking you to surrender these things because He wants to take something good away from you. No, He is asking you to surrender so that He can bring something better. He wants to give you something greater than you can imagine, but that can only happen when you let go of control and trust Him with it. The truth is, we often hold on to things because we're afraid of losing them. We're afraid that if we let go, we'll be left with nothing. But God's promises are clear. He will never leave us or forsake us. When we surrender to Him, He takes what we give and makes it into something far more beautiful and valuable than we could ever imagine. If you're feeling uncertain about surrendering something in your life, I want you to reflect on this. What would it look like if you trusted God fully with every area of your life? What would happen if you truly believed that He has a plan for you that is better than anything you could dream up on your own? This doesn't mean that everything will be easy. Surrendering isn't always painless. It requires faith, it requires obedience, and it requires a willingness to let go of our own understanding. But when we surrender to God, we position ourselves to receive His blessings in ways we never thought possible. Take a moment to reflect on this. What is God asking you to surrender today? Whatever it is, know that He is trustworthy. He is good, and He has a plan for you. Surrendering doesn't mean losing, it means gaining everything that God has for you. If this message has touched your heart, I want to encourage you to take a step of faith today. Comment below with, "I surrender to His will." This is your declaration of trust. It's saying, I'm willing to let go and trust that God has something better for me. If you're ready to take that step, know that you are not alone. God is with you every step of the way, and as you surrender, you will begin to see His transformation in your life. He will take your brokenness, your uncertainties, and your fears, and He will make them into something beautiful. So, take a deep breath and let go. Trust God, surrender, and watch as He makes all things new. The journey of surrender is not just a one-time decision. It's a daily act of faith, a constant choice to let go of the things that hold us back and allow God to lead us into His perfect plan. The beauty of this process lies in the fact that as we surrender, God begins to transform us, slowly but surely, into the person He has always intended us to be. There's a story in the Bible that perfectly illustrates this journey of transformation. It's the story of the Apostle Paul, a man who underwent a radical transformation after his encounter with Jesus. Before his conversion, Paul was a fierce opponent of Christians. He was known for persecuting the early church, and he believed that he was doing God's work by doing so. But everything changed on the road to Damascus. As Paul was on his way to arrest more Christians, he was blinded by a brilliant light, and a voice from heaven spoke to him, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" Acts 9:4. In that moment, Paul's life was forever changed. He was blinded for 3 days, and during that time, he had the chance to reflect deeply on his actions and his life. God spoke to him, not in anger, but in mercy, giving him the opportunity to turn away from his past and embrace a new future. When Ananias came to pray for Paul, his sight was restored, and he was filled with the Holy Spirit. From that point on, Paul's life was marked by a radical transformation. He went from being a fierce enemy of Christ to one of His most passionate followers, spreading the gospel across the world. Paul's transformation didn't happen overnight. It took time. He had to surrender his old life, his old identity, and his old way of thinking. He had to let go of everything he thought he knew in order to embrace the new life that Christ had for him. And in that process, he discovered that God's plan for him was far greater than anything he could have imagined. In the same way, when we surrender to God, we embark on a journey of transformation. We might not always understand the full extent of what God is doing, but we can trust that He is working in us, molding us, and shaping us into the person He wants us to become. This transformation doesn't just happen in our hearts. It extends to every area of our lives, our relationships, our careers, our goals, and our desires. As we surrender to God, He will take our weaknesses and turn them into strengths. He will take our brokenness and make it whole. He will take our doubts and replace them with unshakable faith. The key to this transformation is trust. Trusting that God knows what is best for us, even when it doesn't make sense. Trusting that He has a plan, even when the road ahead seems unclear. Trusting that no matter what happens, God is in control, and He is working all things together for our good. So I ask you today, what are you holding on to that's preventing you from fully experiencing God's transformation in your life? Is it fear? Is it pride? Is it the need for control? Whatever it is, it's time to let go. Surrender it to God and trust that He will use it for His glory. As you reflect on this, I want to remind you of the words of Jesus in Matthew 11:28-30. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Jesus is inviting us into a life of surrender, not because He wants to take something from us, but because He wants to give us something better. When we surrender to Him, He replaces our burdens with His peace, our fears with His comfort, and our chaos with His order. So, as you listen to this, I want you to ask yourself, what are you carrying that you no longer need to carry? What is weighing you down, preventing you from moving forward in the freedom that Christ offers? It's time to let go, surrender it to God, and allow Him to transform your life in ways you never thought possible. If this message is speaking to you, I encourage you to comment below with, "I surrender to His transformation." This is a step of faith, a declaration that you are ready to let go of what's holding you back and allow God to work in your life. And remember, as you surrender, you are not alone. God is with you every step of the way. He is faithful to complete the work He has started in you. So trust Him, let go, and watch as He transforms your life into something beautiful. As we close this journey together, I want to take a moment to congratulate you. Very few people make it to the end of a video like this, and that is no small thing. You've stayed through the process, and by doing so, you've demonstrated something profound, a willingness to go deeper, to reflect more, and to take the next step in your spiritual walk. What you've just experienced is not just information, it's transformation. Every moment of reflection, every truth shared, and every prayer offered has led you to this point. You are here because God is inviting you into something greater. The path you walk is not one of mere chance, but one of divine purpose. You see, surrender isn't a moment of weakness, it's a moment of strength. And by staying with this message, you've embraced the opportunity for God to move in your life in ways you may never have imagined before. You've opened your heart to His will, and that is where real transformation begins. But this is only the beginning. The journey ahead may not always be easy, but I promise you this, you will never walk it alone. God is with you. He is walking beside you, guiding you and empowering you to face the challenges that lie ahead. His strength is made perfect in your weakness. His peace will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. So, as we close, I want to ask you to do something. Comment below with, "I listened to the end." This isn't just a comment, it's a declaration that you didn't just hear the message, but that you received it, that you are choosing to apply it. You're making a stand, publicly proclaiming that you are committed to surrendering your life into God's hands, trusting Him with every area of your being. I also want to invite you to share this video. There's someone in your life who needs to hear this message, someone who is struggling, someone who's on the verge of giving up. Your simple act of sharing could be the lifeline they need. The words you've heard today might be the very words that lead them to their breakthrough. Never underestimate the power of sharing God's message with others. And finally, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, not for the sake of numbers, but for the sake of the community that we are building together. This is more than just a place for teachings. It's a place for spiritual growth, a place for fellowship, a place for encouragement. By subscribing, you're not just joining a channel, you're becoming part of a living, breathing community that will walk with you in faith, hope, and love. If this channel is a flame, you are the oil that keeps it burning. And together, we will continue to walk in the light of God's truth. Before you go, I invite you to pause for just a moment. Don't rush to leave. Close your eyes and just breathe. Allow the music to guide you into a space of quiet surrender. This is your time to reflect on everything you've heard. Let God speak to your heart and surrender any burdens you are still carrying. Let Him take them from you. You are not alone. You are deeply loved, and you are more than capable of walking the path He has set before you. Thank you for being here, and remember, I'm hearing His voice.